All right. Welcome, welcome. We are wrapping up today. You should have my screen. This is part four, guys. This is the wrap up of the foundation series. It is the finale. So, congratulations for making it this far. Yeah. For today's session, we're bringing it all together. And I want to start with a question. Yeah. Think about the last message that you've typed repeatedly, right? Like that same answer to the question that comes in again and again, the same quote request, or, the here's what I need from you note, the answer you've given every new client this year, right? The thing you keep retyping it every week from scratch, right? That's not a wiring problem. Okay, that's a deciding it over and over problem. And today we're going to fix it because the question is, where is that? Right? Where is that piece of information that you keep typing again and again, right? It's not doing any good getting typed over and over by you. So today we're going to fix that problem. And a quick recap, right? Because today stands on 3 weeks of work that you've already put in. So week one, we built the brain, right? A Gemini notebook, they've rebranded, so it was Notebook LM, right? A notebook loaded with your own real material, your bio, your best work, the questions people actually ask you, right? A source of truth. And, we talked about how the source of truth can be different going from, whatever perspective you happen to be wearing the hat of that day, right? Whatever persona you are engaging in, right? But the notebook is your source of truth. And that's where our AI is going to work from. So that way it stays grounded in what's true instead of guessing. Okay. And then in week two, we taught it your voice. This is where we gave it that 1 page of instructions around your words, your rhythm, right? The things you've banned. Don't ever say this, AI. I would never. My big one is like strip out all the hyperbole, Not everything is so excellent and amazing. Get rid of all the jargon, right? Simple English does the trick. We don't need to worry about it. So the reason we did that is so that it can write like you. So that way, when you do that initial prompt, it comes back in a much better place than it would if it didn't know you at all. Remember, out of the box, it's the average of everybody. It's every voice it's ever been trained on. So we give it the brain to know your knowledge and the voice to know how you communicate that knowledge back to people. And last week, we talked about the fence, which is arguably one of the most important points that we're going to have to keep coming back to again and again. And the fence really is about what are we protecting here? As we build, as we explore, as we reimagine, what are we making sure stays confidential, right? What's regulated? What never goes into any AI tool, right? These are things that are decided from the jump, one time before any drafting starts. And then it informs every piece of writing that comes out. And so today, what we've landed on is the payoff. One message goes in, and all the shapes that we want it to take will come out for us, right? At the end of the day, we stay fully in control, right? We are the editor. We get the final say. And one thing before we build, AI isn't limiting you specifically, right? Sorry, AI isn't imitating you specifically. Out of the box, it just doesn't have any of your writing yet. So, like I said earlier, it's the average of everyone until you hand it something of yours. Ground it in your knowledge, in your voice, with your rules. And that's why we built the voice source, right? As one of the foundational elements, why we have the brain, why we leaned into the fence. And now is where it all comes together and we get to work with it. So, as we kick off, really, the big thing to remember here is that this isn't a one and done problem, right? It's gonna drift. And so, already having a good, solid, golden set of what looks good enough, a cadence on when you're gonna check in on it, these are the things that make sure that it stays at a quality you expect as you move forward, right? So, let's have a little exercise here. Spot the clone. Post A or post B? What do we think? I see a lot of B's. Yeah, right? The reframe, right? My big thing is like, I don't want to do if X, if it wasn't X, it was Y, right? I don't want to do the hashtags and the confetti. I had deliberately set my voice card to say, don't do any of that, right? That's the whole reason why part two exists, right? Why we did a voice card is so that way you don't have to come back and scrub for those things that you're just like, I don't ever want to see it. I don't want to be bothered by it, right? And so the point here, as we are looking at what that first generation is that comes out, like I still don't love this. Is it totally refined? No, right? Like I would want to come back and continue to refine this if I just set it up, right? And ask yourself a question, right? Would you actually say that out loud? Is it clear when you say it? If you said it without any context, would people understand? Okay. So think about what good looks like in the context you're considering. Because again, that may shift over time. You can wear different personas and have different voices. That's also the beauty of the tools that exist now. We're able to do that without relying on a team or having to go back from scratch. That's why we're able to repurpose these materials, right? Is because it can be clever and creative. And we can fence it so that that cleverness and creativity works for us and not against us, right? Okay, so this is a fun part, right? So we have the notebook that you created from week one. So if you have been building as we go ahead and open that up. Remember, you had your bio, a couple of finished works, maybe some FAQs, whatever your use case was. Those are the ones that I ended up pulling, right? It includes your voice card. So your Gemini notebook is going to have all of those elements in it already. And so, right, you can see mine. It has my voice card, all the things we've just listed here. Now, the seed, and that's really what we're talking about, right? And remember, I want to be clear about what the sources are, right? So that voice card, right? The voice card isn't the request that you type into the prompt anymore, right? It's a document that the AI reads and it gets its instruction and its guidance from there in terms of this is when I respond, this is how I should respond. These are the guidelines I should follow when I am creating this draft for Krystal, right? Or, you know, whoever you are. So that's really what you want to remember. Now, the seed, right? It isn't content, right? The seed is what we're talking about in this content. It's that thing that you keep typing 1,000 times a week, the question that keeps coming up, that email you keep having to send back out, that repetitive thing, right? And so one of the things that surface for us is we often get quoted or requests for, you know, how much do you cost? You know, what do you want? You know, how much would it be to, you know, have you come and do a facilitation or this and this or such and such, right? And so, you know, the seed for me in a situation like that would be, you know, before I can quote a project, I always need three things, right? I need to know what you want done, when you actually need it, and who has to sign off, right? And so every service business on this call has typed some version of that this month. I would bet my bottom dollar, right? Now, if you build around that and you're able to create that strong prompt library, that strong knowledge base, you can really start to see what happens when you only ever have to decide, you know, how you're going to respond one time. And this is also where you can start to agentify, right? As that response is grounded, you see it's very consistent, you know, your humans in the loop are really keeping the quality where it needs to be. This is where you can start pushing stuff, right? More to an agent to do and having humans check at later points. Still always before it's finally released to a client or to whoever the final end user is. You'll still always want to have that quality control point, right? For external facing items. But this really does start to shift where people need to touch. Yeah. The better it gets, the further down you can actually start to engage with this. But you don't want to set that check-in point too far down the road until you've proven that the instructions you've already set up are getting you the kind of result that you want. right? And so I stress this because it's great that we've set up our knowledge base. It's great that we've, created our voice cards. It'll still take refining from here to make sure that it does exactly what we want it to do, right? Okay, so if I take my rule, okay, and I drop it here into my knowledge base, right? Into my notebook LM or Gemini notebook as it is now, okay? So as that's generating, the point here is we want to look at what we're actually asking for when we're working on these things, hey? So if we go into our interactive session, which will be available to folks as we wrap today, okay? The seed multiplier is really what is the one sentence that we really want to make clear, right? So while it's working in Gemini Notebook, I'm going to go ahead and do it in our interactive workbook as well. So these are the things that I need from everybody. And who's it for, right? This is the other thing. Remember, the audience can change, hey? It has to, better to tweak that and better to give guidance from the jump so that way when you send that message, it's very easy for the person it's hitting for them to translate it, right? Lower the cognitive load. Don't make me try to decipher what you're saying, hey? And so for this one, I'm going to say this is for individuals and small businesses reaching out for quotes. And I want to have, let's see, an email reply, a text chat version, an FAQ. I think I also want a checklist because I think that could be useful. And so, build the multiplier prompt from there, right? And so it takes the shape, it does everything you need to do. And so now that I have my multiplier prompt, I'm just going to go pop in here and drop it now. And so, really, what we're doing as we are creating this stuff, right, is we are making sure that context is reigning supreme. Okay. So, grounded in your brain, it's got your voice, knows what it's allowed to do and not because we set up our fence. And now we're giving it the shapes that we want it to take. And we're giving it an opportunity to generate these different shapes. And by shapes, we're really just saying your messaging shapes. Maybe there's a better marketing way to do that. So feel free to send suggestions, y'all. Happy to change that up in a way that makes more sense. But really, it's the medium of the communication. Is it an email? Is it an FAQ? What is it? What is the best medium? And oftentimes you want to have it in a few different places, presented in a couple of different ways, right? People learn differently, they have different attention spans. We want to be mindful about what that actually looks like then, okay? So you can see in my notebook LM what it did. Draft pops up on every single one of them, okay? And so this was like a super easy one just because it's such a short response. But think about this in the context of if you're running a big procurement and you get a lot of Q&A about the process. If you're running a grant cycle, right? Anything you do on a cyclical rolling basis, right? Even interviews, okay? Or I say even interviews, like maybe it's especially interviews, hey? Again, the whole point is to bring some consistency and uniformity to what we already know is standard. And why does this really help us, hey? Well, we want to have that kind of standard. One, for regulation reasons, if we're talking about hiring, we need to show that it's apples to apples in how we go about a process. But two, it helps free up the time for humans to really focus on the more important bits, right? Really digging into that CV instead of worrying about all the admin of getting it together. Yeah. As you're triaging, as you're shortlisting, as you're doing Q&A, you're able to really focus in on those Q&A points, which are more edge cases, right? Which don't have a standard response. So really, it's not about, suddenly having this, overwhelming transformation that shifts everything all at once. It's all of these small areas where there is a true opportunity to accelerate the pace of what we're doing without trading quality or judgment that frees people up to do the more valuable work. Now, when we talk about that more valuable work, this is one that you'll have to dig into, right? because value is going to shift. What is the most valuable for your business now in the age of AI, right? If having basic agents to run all the rote and routine administrative work, if that's table stakes, if that's standard, if that's what you expect everyone to be having, what's your differentiator? It's going to be the humans, how they're interacting with your clients, internal or external, right? It's going to be becoming about the experience that people are able to have now, that presumably we freed up all this time because the agents are doing all of the mundane and the rote and the routine and the established because they can safely do it. So that way we can get back to doing the really creative stuff. Ultimately, that's the goal. And that's why we're trying to build these foundational elements. Once you start to free up your time, it gets addictive, right? You start to see other areas where you can be more efficient and leverage these tools in safe and smart ways, right? A big point for all of this, okay, is the sign off. And this is something that is often getting lost as we're talking about AI transformations. And if I'm being honest, just transformation in general. Okay. Anybody that's been in the professional space for a minute, okay, if you've done any kind of change management, been part of a transformation, started a new project, closed one down, audited it, it doesn't matter, right? You've experienced things, right? You have your own lived experience that you've brought to this. And the most important thing right now is to make sure that that lived experience is informing the agents and the AI that is being set up for your company. Your lived experience is going to be what creates that golden set. And that golden set is what is your best example of what a great output looks like. That's all that is. You need people to tell you that. You need your seasoned experts. And those seasoned experts, they'll need to figure out how to manage new humans coming up and agents that are brand new. So as a manager, they're going to have to learn how to teach to agents. They're going to have to teach to this new apprenticeship style where the folks coming in on the bottom rung are no longer doing the task. That is what the agents do, right? This is what AI is helping us do. So it shifts them more into discernment straight away. So it is a different kind of learning profile, learning ladder that we're talking about. And this really becomes important when we're designing the new workflows and we're thinking about that sign-off gate. And that sign-off gate is the part where AI just doesn't touch it, right? You want to check a couple of facts, hey, or a few facts. Does the message still sound like you for whatever this output is? Or does the message sound like the voice I've said I wanted it to sound like, right? Maybe you're writing on behalf of somebody else or a company or a different persona, right? The second one is say it out loud. Does it actually sound like something you would say? If you trip over it, cut it. If it doesn't sound natural, it's not right. Make it sound natural. This is why we free up time so that we can then curate something sharper where needed. 3 is anything invented. Any promise, any time frame, anything that wasn't part of the source documentation and what you as the human know to be true. Now, this is how we guard against complacency, because there can be this sense of, oh, the AI's got it, I don't have to worry about it anymore. You got to worry. Okay. And building this into part of the process, building this as part of the rhythm of business, part of business as usual, is truly what is going to separate the folks that are able to be successful in their transformation efforts and folks that get stuck. Okay. All right. So 4, and this is one that I often have to come back and tell myself, if I'm being honest. Are you clear? Right? It's all about being clear. Don't try to be clever. Hey, like I often will try to be too clever, right? And then I have to remind myself, like, no, this is a working message, not a billboard, right? So anything cute, cut it if it doesn't serve a practical purpose, right? Now, think about what we're able to do now. Okay. And if I go back to my notebook LM, right? The important thing we're talking about here is that I'm able to take something that's known and established and eats up some of my time and create a framework around it so that way it won't eat up my time anymore. People will get responses even faster. I'll be able to get back on the harder responses faster as well, right? I freed up value in a way that I've not been able to do before. And, at the end of the day, a person still reads, they still edit it, right? They still are the one who signs off before anything goes out. Now, that's the big point, hey? 10 unread outputs a week is how a clone stops being you. So at the end of the day, what we're talking about is making sure you don't get lost in this process, that you always stay in the mix. Now, where in the process arguably can shift, and rightly should. Over time, as things change, as your teams get better, as the agents get more refined, as the technology evolves, it's going to change. And that's okay. But here's the loop you now own, right? You know what it looks like to take something that is repetitive and to now multiply it into whatever shape you need it to be. You know where you need to be in that process before anything goes out to a client. Nothing you have to figure out, nothing that starts from scratch anymore. A draft that comes to you in your voice, grounded in your knowledge, that you'll continue to hone and sharpen and refine. So that way, that first button click, that first draft gets to whatever percentage is good enough. Not a pejorative sense of good enough, but good enough in terms of at some point we have to say, like, yeah, this is good, let's go. So what does that start to look like? This is what you want to do, right? This is how you make sure that that clone stays helpful, right? Stays grounded in your voice, doesn't start going off the rails, right? Make it a ritual. What does that ritual start to look like, right? And then slowly, slowly pick the other tasks that you can start to put in the same buckets. What other knowledge base would you build around a set of Q&A that gets out? Are you rolling something out to a client internally where you're getting a lot of questions, where there just needs to be more learning? How are you leveraging AI to help get Q&A out sooner, faster, the right kind of responses to help people better meet the moment, right? It's just in time learning at a pace and a scale that we've never been able to achieve before. And that can be incredibly impactful for our teams if we're able to harness it well. So before we close, what do you keep retyping? Ask yourself that. What are the things you're constantly having to resend? And maybe it's not a daily, maybe it's that quarterly data call that comes out, right? Maybe it is that, annual meeting, right? Weekly partner notes, different things like this. These are things that you can create a knowledge base around to help manage the follow-up, the follow-through, the tracking. Again, always with you there to say like, yeah, that was right, or this isn't right. As always, guys, I appreciate the time. I hope that you continue to learn and explore. For your awareness, all of our foundational elements are available for you. Sorry, all of our foundational artifacts are free and available in the Commons Academy library. So do make sure you go and check it out. This is my login. Obviously, it's a little bit different, but you'll be able to see if you scroll down, freebies from foundations. You'll have all of the recordings from the last 4 weeks, in addition to all of the cards that we've started, right? So you have your second brain, the voice card, the fence card, the cards that we did today, right? The 1 seed 5 outputs, the shape map, and your weekly ritual. We will be continuing next week, picking up on a new series where we will be talking about sorry, my screen just shifted. One sec. Okay. All right. All right, next week we're going to be moving off of foundations and moving into the next deeper level of conversation around what we are um, building toward. And hold on, let me drop the invite right in the chat. That's not right. Okay, I will drop it to you later. That is what I'm going to need to do. Oh, yes, yes. It is spot the right task and map it before you build. Okay, so the point of this one, and sorry for the friction there at the end, guys. The point of the spot the right task and map it before you build session, it's exciting out there with all the different solutions, right? No doubt there are a lot of efficiencies to be gained. What efficiencies are worth it is the point right now, though. And so, spot the right task is really about digging into what could you do right now that could have an immediate impact that's low risk, high reward that AI can support. And really, I'm focused more on the generative AI and agentic AI, right? Analytical's been there for a while. And so I would expect that informs and supports everything we're trying to do. But in terms of now you have your foundation, where do we run, right? If we're thinking about where we go deeper, we want to identify the biggest, gnarliest friction points first, because then you'll really be able to consciously decide this is the one I'm going to tackle now because I can see low risk, how much time it can save me, the immediate proof point that I can then go back to my team or myself with, right? Who are you convincing? The point is not to make people wait weeks and weeks and months and years, right? We need to show immediate value. And what's great when done well and with intention, we can. We can really free up hours pretty much straight away. Now, we'll pretty quickly run into roadblocks as a result of data issues that we find, lack of governance, ambiguity and responsibilities and roles. That's the point, right? You start pulling at that thread, and then you're really able to see where are the gaps that can potentially disrupt us down the line. And because you have your foundations, when you start to do this inventory of the friction in your work life, or maybe you're doing this on a personal level, that's fine too. As you start to identify that friction and we start to address it, it's going to be grounded in what we already know to be true. Do you see? So it really does start to build. And if you're in an organization and you're thinking about this, think about how that starts to compound your intelligence over time, right? So as always, guys, thank you for the engagement and the attention. Feel free to drop in the notes what you're looking for coming up in other live sessions. We've been able to do, some spot one-on-one quick deep dives based on some requests. So as there is a need, feel free to drop us a note. Thanks. Have a great week. The encore will be with Dwayne at 7 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it.